Terminator Genisys may have bombed at the North American box office, making just under $90 million domestically, but even though it looked like any sequel possibility had died, the international box office just might save it. According to reports, Genisys just opened in China, making over $27 million in its first day, bringing its worldwide box office total up to a respectable $353 million. This makes the fifth Terminator film a profitable one for the studio and has raised the issue if a sequel to the new film could still be in the cards. John Byers said that we will see a sequel to Terminator Genisys.
You know, if you'd asked me this 2 weeks ago, I'd say no, clearly, just with the domestic box office alone, and even the foreign numbers were okay, but it wasn't enough to salvage it. But it's just kept rolling, and far more than the studio anticipated. China has responded to it very well. Now you're saying, like, you got a $155 million movie that's now crossed that threshold of what they needed to be profitable with about $350 million. They needed to cross that $300 million mark to be profitable after P&A and theater cuts and stuff like that, but they did it now. This is now a profitable movie. Now, some people will say, well, there still can't be a franchise because in a couple years, the rights revert back to James Cameron. What do you think James Cameron's going to do with the franchise? He's not making more Terminator movies. Right. He's going to then relicense it back to the studio again. That's what's going to happen here. Look, I'm certainly not going to guarantee that another Terminator, a sequel to this to Genisys or Genisys, as you so affectionately call it, I'm not going to guarantee it, but I think the chances today are a lot bigger than they were before. I'll go so far as to say a 52% chance. So at 52, I have to say bye. Schnepp, what do you think? Are we going to see a sequel to Genisys?
I don't think so. I mean, I think I finally saw the Terminator film, and I'd say Terminator salvaged this instead of salvation. It was like, I couldn't believe. I mean, I liked the beginning of it, and then it just started to just fall off. And then I think they fired everybody, like the script continuity person got fired because they had a countdown, like, we only have 4 minutes to save the world, and they were walking. You know,
having a leisurely stroll, just chatting about.
I don't know if you're going to have sex with me and then I'm going to create John Connor. You know, just like you should be running at this moment. This 4 minutes to save the entire world. There's no time for chit chat. Every shot should be them running by those catwalks, and like everything was leisurely and like walking up the stairs. I remember like, what's going on? I was angry sitting there, angry in the seats because like. No one's paying attention. They're like, let's make sure we nail the dialogue. It's like unbelievable. That's all I could say. No one was paying attention to the script. So.
I agree. Brisk jogging should have been employed at the end of Terminator Genisys. If I was a man with a crippling gambling addiction, which I am, I would bet that Terminator Genisys does get a sequel because, look, it's basically like playing roulette. That's red, and then black would be James Cameron getting the rights back and deciding to do something else with Terminator, which I'm not told he's not going to do that he doesn't have some cool idea in his head, but he seems a little preoccupied with the Avatar universe to not just sell Terminator back to somebody else. Now, Genisys, this actually could be really good news, and stay with me on this, is that it made money. It's making money overseas, but it's not crushing it. It was not a hit domestically, so maybe if they make a sequel to Terminator Genisys, they pull back the budget a little bit and they use something which I like to call a creative idea. Oh my God, you mean like the first Terminator in 1984? Wouldn't that be awesome if they made it for a smaller budget but it actually had something interesting to say? I don't know if you could bring back all the characters you had in Terminator Genisys. I don't know that you need to bring them back. Be great to see Arnold again. I thought Emilia Clarke was good enough as Sarah Connor, so I'd like to see them. Be interesting to see what they do with Doctor Who as the bad guy. So there's some things that show potential in this, and it's a slight yes, but I think that it will happen.
Yeah, see, I walked out of Terminator Genisys because we all saw it on the same night. And I remember walking out and I was like, oh, I didn't hate that. I didn't hate that. But I remember one of the things that really bothered me, and this goes to what you were just saying that they really need to do if they do in the next one. What bothered me is getting to the point now that the Terminators are magic. Like, they've gone to the point where, look, you can't convince me this is technology. What this new Terminator is, that's not technology. You've gone into the worlds of wizardry and witchcraft.
Right, it just shows up as a hologram. Every time you turn somewhere, it's like Matt Smith, like, I'm right here. Like, you know.
Well, and John, what the John Connor Terminator could do is like, oh, you injected him with something and it transformed him into a robot. I mean, and then what that robot can do, it just got to the point where it's like, going back to what that first Terminator was, right?
Right.
I love that if they could find a way to do that, I'd be totally on board.
Yeah, but I'll also say that I don't want to see a sequel to Terminator Genisys because I hated that movie. I was very let down by it. I thought that they completely bastardized all the cool lore that they had in Terminator and Terminator 2.
They really
I
did.
don't want to see
Yeah.
it. I'd rather stay home and play Sega Genesis.
Yeah, if they were gonna, like, I sell it, but if they were gonna do a sequel, they could take elements and remnants of what they did with I can't even say it.
Jenny Smith.
Yeah, Jenny Smith. And use other elements from, they could perhaps use some elements from Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles. They could try to do another reweaving, because that's what they did in this one. They were like, let's pick moments from the first two and forget about number 3 and 4 and then make a worse film. You know what I mean? It's like, or like a weird hodgepodge. It wasn't that horrible. I didn't hate it. But towards the end is when I started to hate, because everything they built up to, it just fell apart with the weird floaty Matt Smith and stuff. So, so you could ruin a movie. Like, you had me for the first hour, rest of it's ruined.
Now, to be fair to Genesis, though, that was an unfair comparison, because you would rather stay home and play Sega Genesis than an evening out with a beautiful woman.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it's not really a fair comparison.
As my girlfriend can attest to, I play a lot of Golden Axe.